On this week of the Pigskin Cafe, we look back to recap fully week 1, and we're looking forward to week 2 of college football. Hey guys, the football season is here. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Pigskin Cafe, a podcast where Hampton, Chase, and Graham break down all things college football. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
They have to win this game.
There's a problem.
This one's tough.
We are back.
That's what my gut's telling me.
I genuinely could not believe
You
it.
don't live in the great state of Texas.
All right, big boy. Hold my sweet tea.
What are we doing?
That is a stat there, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back to the Pigskin Cafe. Hey, we are circling up to finish talking about week 1, which, guys, we just talked about week 0 and then how long week 1 lasts with Labor Day. It's a great start to college football, but it's a little hard to keep up with. Where are we? We've got some teams like Florida State that have already played 2 games, and we're going to talk about them. But we've got to start with the game that was played on Sunday, which was LSU versus USC. We talked about just a little while ago, we talked about how this game they actually were trying to get to almost not be played almost. And, man, I am so glad that we got to witness it and watch it. So if you guys don't mind, I'm actually going to give just my quick high-level thoughts. Hampton, I want you to go for a little bit. Graham, I want to grab yours, and I might spark a couple of more thoughts that I had. I just want to say, not that I was right. I just kind of got lucky picking this because these two teams, we kept talking about that they felt similar in a weird way that we couldn't really describe. And, man, I mean, they almost looked identical. One thing that I thought that surprised me was the defense for USC. But what I was more surprised by is that USC had success running the ball up the middle. That would have not been, if you would have told me, hey, what are the things that you don't think are going to happen? That seemed to be where they found success when they really needed it. And whenever they were in a bind, a lot of times you would call those plays just kind of like, hey, let's try to get it to the center of the field or just play some kind of yardage, and then they would bust it off, and all of a sudden the scenarios completely changed. So I was really surprised by that. Man, USC's quarterback, I thought both quarterbacks played really, really well. And when you watch them spin the football, and I'm not turning this into Jalen Milroe, that's not where I'm going with this, but when you watch those two guys throw the football, you're thinking, hey, that's what a pocket passer looks like. And they both just really surprised me. I don't know if we've seen 2 quarterbacks of that quality just come out and make good throws, hard throws, and receivers make plays. It just really was a game of margin and inches, and I was really impressed by it. And so the only thing I'll really just kind of tag here is that I couldn't believe how many balls the LSU's defense swatted down. And you would have thought, hey, basically if you're taking a play or 2 off each drive by swatting the ball down, surely LSU wins that game. And we all saw Brian Kelly and Hampton. I want to kind of tee you up because this kind of came down to the story of coaches. Both of these coaches really needed a win. I'd say oh my gosh, I'm losing his name. Help me out with
Lincoln
you.
Riley?
Yeah, Lincoln Riley. He needed to win more than I think Brian Kelly did, just due to Brian Kelly's immediate success at LSU. He bought himself some time, and Lincoln Riley needed this win. So all that to say, we know that LSU thought they had this game, and then they didn't take control of it and take over and dominate when the game was on the line. What I saw, though, like I said, I saw little mistakes, like I said, running the ball up the middle that led to success, and then quarterbacks throwing good balls and receivers making plays. And I think, again, credit to you, Southern California. I will say, though, when they won that game, it felt like they had just won the Super Bowl. And you would expect from a team that level, that culture, you got to kind of act like you've been there before, like you were expecting to win. And I mean,
they were doing snow angels in the confetti.
Yeah. I mean, it
Yeah,
really.
not the best
You
look.
don't see Alabama do that when they win the SEC championship, hardly.
No.
So it'll be interesting to see how both teams kind of react to this win. I think USC can ride it, but I was a little taken back by how just how excited they were to win, almost like they didn't win a game last year, and they had the number one pick overall. So I'm going to quit rambling at this point. There was a lot of things to talk about, but Hampton, I want to start you. I don't really care where you go with this, but I do want to start you with Brian Kelly at LSU. And he's always been an interesting personality. I saw a lot of Notre Dame fans basically saying, I'm so glad that he's someone else's problem. And that if we would have had Brian Kelly playing against A&M, you would have seen the same Brian Kelly giving the same post-game interview of him just being frustrated and mad and blaming other people. And they were really excited that they have Coach Freeman. So I just want to get you to start there. Start with maybe Brian Kelly's response to the game and then go in depth what you thought about the game, how it played out. So just the clip that went viral, how do you react to it?
So great way to tee it up, Chase. Before I get to that, I want to say shout out again to Auburn Shepherd for joining me on the last pod to recap a lot of week one. I know both of you guys were having a great time on Labor Day weekend, and Shep filled in, did a great job. I just want to give him another shout out. And I also want to say I'm very glad to not be coming to you from a rural basement in Central Florida or even Southeast Alabama. I'm just glad to be coming to you from my bedroom. And for those who know, you know what I'm talking about. Speaking of Brian Kelly, when you said that, it spurred something in me and got my wheels turning. And I remember our good friend, listener of the show, Kyle Edwards, sent me this today. So as the head coach in Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman is 8-4 against top 25 teams. Brian Kelly in his final 3 years at Notre Dame was 5-6 against top 25 teams. And I contend, just like I said last year, when Florida State week one beat them, I believe the score was 45-24, and they embarrassed them on national television. I told everyone the worst thing that happened for that program, and that they exceeded expectations in year one by primarily beating Alabama. But if you look at the rest of their schedule and the rest of their losses, they got blown out 2 or 3 times. They got blown out against Florida State, and then another big game against a USC team who we can all say was coming off a very, very disappointing season. They had the number 1 pick in the draft, Caleb Williams, and I believe they ended up going 7-6 to the point where a Lincoln Riley completely overhauled his defensive staff. You're coming in with a new quarterback who I said on this pod, and I stand by it.
Ooh.
He is the least talented quarterback Lincoln Riley's ever had from a tools perspective, height, weight, arm power, arm talent, that sort of thing. And you come into this game with Garrett Nussmeier, who has had experience, who played well in the SEC championship in 2022. He played well against Wisconsin in the bowl game last year, led him to a come from behind victory, and he continued that against USC. I think he was 30 for 39, over 300 yards. He was spinning that thing. Kyron Lacey looked unstoppable early on, and I don't know if USC made an adjustment or LSU simply went away from him, but Kyron Lacey got awfully quiet late. And I paired that with also the fact that USC made another key adjustment in this game. I think as the game went along, they noticed the more that they blitzed, the more that they pressured Garrett Nussmeier, the more erratic he became with his accuracy. And they were able to rush throws and get him to throw the ball where they wanted to for a short completion. Then they were able to rally and tackle. For all the talk of the great LSU offensive line, their offensive line, to me, in this game, they did not assert their will in the run game. They were not the most physical offensive line. To me, that was USC. And this is an offensive line with Will Campbell and Emory Jones bookending at tackles. That's supposed to be the strength of your team. And they were talking about, we're going to come in and it's going to be a fist fight. Well, they lost that fist fight, especially in the running game. The only semblance of juice they got from there was from John Emery, who, bless his heart, he can't catch a break. He tore his ACL. He's out for the year. So ultimately, Brian Kelly loses another big game, and he has this tendency after a big game like this, throws his team under the bus. talks about how they were on the sideline acting like they had already won, having penalties in key moments. Even calls out his own quarterback and said that USC's quarterback outplayed our quarterback. And I mean, Garrett Nussmeier, man, was the least of your concerns in that game. Like
Totally.
if you're an LSU fan, you should feel ultimately confident with the product you have at quarterback. Is he Jayden Daniels? No, but Jayden Daniels is one of the better quarterbacks to come out of the SEC in a few years, and Garrett Nussmeier filled in quite admirably for him. My last point on USC, and then Graham, I promise I'm getting to you, but I mentioned that Miller Moss is the least talented quarterback Lincoln Riley has played with. But I have a hot take. After seeing that game and after seeing him in the bowl game, he runs the offense better than a guy like Caleb Williams did last year. And I know that's bold, and I know people are like, oh my gosh, you're talking about the number one pick. What I mean is everyone gets so enamored with the big play, with the highlight of Caleb Williams running around, playing backyard football, throwing it across his body 30, 40 yards downfield on a BB line missile. But Miller Moss plays within the system. He keeps drives going. He's efficient. He has a command, a presence over the huddle. And I think that is going to serve USC well as they go through this year because they got weapons. Zachariah Branch had a big game. Kyron Hudson made probably the catch of the year in week 1. And if he continues to be accurate, keep drives extended by making the throws that need to be made, whether it be short, intermediate, or down the field, USC is going to be a tough team to beat this year because Lincoln Riley always has had a good offense. What was missing was that defense, and I think finally the defense is not elite by any stretch of the imagination, but they are inching toward a dramatic improvement, which I didn't see coming, and I think a lot of people didn't see coming. So I give credit to them. I'm high on both of these teams as the season goes on. I don't think either one of them are going to completely fall off a cliff, especially LSU. That was a battle between two good teams, and I think both are going to contend their conference. And my last point, I promise, I just thought of this. I want to give a credit, and they said on the broadcast, Kirk Herbstreit did. Let's give a hat tip to Nussmeier and to Moss for staying around when they could have transferred out. They waited their time, they bided their time, and they're both fourth-year players taking full advantage of their opportunity. That's something a lot of quarterbacks around the country can learn from. So great game, really interesting takeaways by both teams. And Graham, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, man.
Yeah, I want to start off with just your comment about Miller Moss being just a good system quarterback in this Lincoln Riley offense. I think it really reminds me of the 2017 Oklahoma Sooners with Baker Mayfield, the year that Baker won his Heisman Trophy. And that was the highest that Oklahoma had ever finished. They finished I think, at 3 in the AP or coaches poll. They finished at 3.
Lost to Georgia in the Rose Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, truly in double overtime or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So truly one play away. And I think that for this USC team, you've got to be super pleased with Miller Moss. I think Lincoln Riley is a QB factory. I mean, he just is, and you've got to give credit to that. But like Hampton, like you said, Miller Moss, not the most talented guy he's ever worked with, but just a guy that understood the offense and did what he was supposed to do with the ball, and didn't he never went broke. He just always took the profit when he could, and that was so helpful for him. I think that on the reverse side, looking at this LSU team, this might be a hot take, but I think that this was a good game for LSU. That was the bold take. Okay. Why is it a bold take? Okay.
That's what folks were asking.
Garrett Nussmeier played very well. Outside of the one interception that he threw, had 9 incompletions.
That interception was at the end of the game with like 5 seconds left.
I think that, at least 4 of those incompletions were simply him throwing the ball deep, just getting rid of it so he didn't get sacked.
Yep.
Garrett Nussmeier got sacked 0 times. Not a single time did he get sacked. Didn't lose yards running the ball. I think that's super impressive for a guy that in his fourth year, I mean, the moment didn't get too big for him. Made one bad play, but it was not his fault that they lost. And I think that Brian Kelly he's like the parent that, everybody hates sitting next to at the ball field. It's just like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens. It's always the one play that their kid didn't make, like that the other kids made, is the reason why they lost. Like, it's never their kid's fault. It's never anything they did. Man, if that other kid would have done better, then our team would have won, because my kid came to play. And you hate sitting by those people. You just hate it, because when things go wrong, sometimes you just got to admit, you know what? It was my bad. We weren't prepared. Or you got to say, you know what? This just wasn't our game.
Mm-hmm.
But for Brian Kelly to just blow up like he was, just in a temper tantrum, truly just, I just didn't understand it. Because when you watch the game, you look at the film, you see the plays that were made and not made. It wasn't like this was this wasn't LSU versus Florida State last year. It was a one-score game, and in this new system of the college football playoff, a good loss is not. If anything, it's going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. One good loss is not going to hurt you. And you look at it, Garrett Nussmeier was very efficient, took care of the ball, and ultimately led this offense a lot better than I anticipated that they would. Throwing for over 300 yards, on 30 completions, I would have never predicted that LSU would have done that. I would have thought they were going to run the ball 60 times, give it to Emory 60 times, just try and get Nussmeier, trying out of it a little bit.
Get him comfortable.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that was my anticipation for LSU. Obviously, got to be more efficient in the red zone. Got to put up points. Throw for 300 yards, rushing for over 100, and only scoring 20 points. Only getting 2 touchdowns when we talk about it is disappointing for sure. I do want to go to, back to USC and kind of talk about defense for just a second. I think that, Deanton Lynn coming from UCLA, I thought that for not even like an average football fan, but not an in-depth football fan, especially not knowing West Coast football as not very well, I did not know who this defense coordinator was coming from UCLA to USC. Why would he swap from one school in LA to go to another when they're both going to the same conference in the Midwest, the Big Ten? I was very impressed. I think that USC's team last year would have given up 30, 35 points to this LSU team,
if not more.
Yeah, when you look at it, USC had the one, one interception, and then let me look at the fumbles. But did a decent job getting the ball turned over. But I think that the biggest deal was that they were just containing, bend but not break, which was a lot of times for USC was the big play that killed them. It would be 3rd down and 8, and they'd give up 15 yards, and you just wouldn't understand why they did what they did.
Can I add to your point real quick, Graham?
Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of that, that's a great point by you. That first drive, getting that stop on 4th down and holding them to 0 points was a tone setter for the entire game. It gave them confidence that, hey, what we've been working on all offseason is going to come to fruition. So I think that's a great point by you.
Yeah, USC didn't have a single sack, only had 3 tackles for loss, so really not making explosive plays or big plays behind the line of scrimmage, but just showing that you're not going to break. Which for so many of these past years, USC and at Oklahoma was shown that was eventually going to break. It was a fun game to watch. It was one of those that I didn't necessarily know who was going to win, but you knew it was going to be close regardless. With USC's high-powered offense, with LSU being a deep team. But, man, I think this was it was not as bad of a loss for LSU as Brian Kelly made it out to be.
It wasn't. No.
But it was a very big win for USC. I think that it really, Hampton, like you said, that stopping them fourth down set the tone for the first drive. I think this game sets a tone for USC's entire season, knowing that they're going to go into Big Ten play with some form of defense. I mean, we're going to tell the test based off of 8 weeks, not based off 1 week. But if USC can have just half of a defense, and that's what we always said. If USC, Oklahoma, if Lincoln Riley just had somewhat of a defense, they could make it to the national championship game. But every year it was the defense that held them back. And this year, they might have figured it out.
I like it. Guys, I want to end this. Let me round this out by saying this. There's a saying that goes, good leaders, when things go wrong, they look in the mirror. Bad leaders, when things go wrong, they look out of the window. And
that's a word.
Hey, think on that for the rest of the night. But here's what I want to take that to is that
Write that down.
I saw, write that down. I saw a statistic that said that LSU is 0-4 in the past, and it might have been 0-5 in the past 4 to 5 years, that they're 0-whatever in season openers. What that tells me,
they haven't won one since 2019.
What that tells me, it's not an X's and O's. It feels like it's man, when is the coach gonna say, hey guys, we're not coming into the season ready for something, and we gotta do something different. And I can't believe that he looked out of the window instead of looking at the mirror saying, I can't believe this happened again. We've played another close game, and here we are. Hampton, you round us out.
Well, no, the best part, he threw him under the bus, he ran over him, and then he caught himself like 30 seconds later and said, oh, but I gotta do better. I'm like, no, the damage is already done. You've already thrown him under the bus. Don't try to get out and check on him now. I mean, the damage is done. They're roadkill at this point.
Yeah. Oh, what happened? Are you okay?
Exactly. Michael Scott ran a Meredith over with her. I mean, it's the same thing.
I was there because I was in the car that ran over Meredith. It's like, oh my. All right, guys, let's keep moving, and I think I've kind of misplaced our chat a little bit, but I know that we're headed towards talking about FSU just at a high level. Yeah. Let's kind of talk about that really quickly, and then let's move into a couple of games that we're going to preview. So, Hampton, start us off with FSU and just what's happening right now.
Woo. That is a loaded question. Before I answer that, shout out Andy Nee, Lincoln Riley believer forever and ever, and he finally proved him right. So shout out Andy. Great time. Great friend of the show. Florida State, they took on Boston College Monday, and I said on our recap show of Week 1 with Shep, and I think I even said it after Dublin, if they lose this game on Monday night, and I had a feeling that there was a chance, like I wasn't going to predict it because I'm like, maybe they get up off the mat. They show a little gumption. They show they got some pride. But I was like, if they do, things are going to get really interesting in Tallahassee. And, man, it is not good. And I hate to say this week 2, but this season's doomed for them. Like, it's over. Stick a fork in them. They are done. And I can't wait November 30th to watch Florida State versus Florida on Tubi. It's going to be great viewing for everybody because, I mean, that matchup in rivalry week is going to be one for the ages. It's going to be so bad I can't take my eye off it. But from a Florida State perspective, you have a Boston College team that comes in with a new head coach in Bill O'Brien, a team that only lost to you by 2 last year, and they come into Doak Campbell. They were underdogs, and they proceed to beat you by 15 points. They could have beat you worse. They kneeled the ball at your 5-yard line. They outrushed you like 270 to 60 and just completely dominated you and made you quit. I mean, that is what I saw on Monday night was that Florida State quit. And I know everybody wants to focus on DJ Uyunglele, and look, he is not great, and he has a lot of issues, and he's had them for the past 5 years, but even he is not this bad. I think the situation around him this year might even be worse than what he had at Oregon State. I mean, he didn't look this bad at Oregon State last year. He's never been an elite quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but it does not look this bad. And the offensive line is a disaster. The defensive line that everybody touted as the best in the country is getting ran through like crap through a tin horn, as the GOAT would say. And they just look like a team that doesn't have any will, that doesn't have any pride. And this is a systemic issue from how this team was built. They have a culture problem down at Florida State because they've been bringing in all these transfers that are, in my opinion, making a transaction instead of choosing a place that is going to transform them into better men and better football players and then a life after football. And when you get a bunch of guys in like that and you lack leadership and you lack accountability from a player level, you're going to have a team that ultimately feels disjointed and feels like they don't have pride in the jersey that they're putting on. And again, I can't speak for any of these guys. I'm just telling you what I saw on Monday night. It was a team that did not play with energy. I mean, from the moment that game began, you knew that Boston College was going to control the lines of scrimmage, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, I haven't seen Bill O'Brien call a game that well since he had Deshaun Watson back before all the allegations, back before the suspension. I mean, he on one drive alone, he called like 3 wheel routes, and they worked every time, and it ended in a touchdown. So ultimately, Florida State, to me, this season is toast. The question is now, with Norvell, were the past 2 years the anomaly, and this year and the other 3 what we can expect from him? That's the question to me, because the past 2 years you had a guy like Jordan Travis who came in and was the fulcrum of that team. And you had guys like Jared Verse, and you had Fisk on the defensive line, and they provided that level of leadership that this team simply lacks. So when you pair that with a talent disparity, it's a recipe for disaster. I know DJU missed a ton of throws, but even when he made them, they dropped them a lot of the time on key downs that could have converted and kept drives going. They're in a bad way right now, man. And again, what I'm interested to see is not how the season ends up, because I think ultimately it's not going to be good. How does Mike Norvell pivot from this? Does he completely change his philosophy for how he assembles a team? Because if he doesn't, it's going to be his future's not going to be very bright in Tallahassee. And Graham, I want to kick it to you. I know you had high hopes for Florida State entering the year. You had a very high opinion of them, and they just simply haven't lived up to it. So what do you make of all this, man?
Yeah, I've got to apologize. Listeners, I'm sorry. I'm not going to Brian Kelly and point the finger. I'm not going to say that the rest of the other 2 guys.
Look in the mirror, Graham. Don't look out the window.
That contribute to the podcast need to do better. I got to do better. I thought that. I guess I bought snake oil, as Chase would always say. I was convinced that DJ went to Oregon State and figured it out. Like the pressure was taken off of him, and so he was able to actually be more of a quarterback instead of a star. And now he goes back to Florida State, and he's neither. I mean, he's not. I said this. I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it, I guess. The Dr. Pepper commercials, they just ruin you. I mean, they really do. You're bound to have a bad season when Dr. Pepper gets you on their commercials. But for Florida State, but for Florida State, man, just a terrible start to the season. I just thought about it. I was trying to look it up before you throw it to me, Hampton. But when was the last time that Florida State lost to Boston College and Georgia Tech in the same year? I can't tell you, but I can imagine it's not been very soon. It's not been very recently. It had to have been. It's probably never. Honestly,
Probably not.
I mean, if it did, it might have been one of the, maybe Norvell's first years or one of those 3 and 10 years somewhere hidden in the back room. But man, Florida State just, you don't want to call them frauds, but I mean,
Oh,
they're
I will.
suspect. They're suspect.
I'll call them frauds. That's what they are.
I mean, Abe, I thought you had a good take on it. Defensive line was supposed to be the best in college football, and I mean, they gave up 270 yards. Like the quarterback for Boston College threw for like 100 yards. That was it.
Yeah.
Which today's football is, I mean, is laughable. I mean, we just talked about 2 quarterbacks that threw over 300 yards and got throws for 100. I think that it's just – I think that Florida State has gotten their bell rung twice, and they don't know what to do. Them losing to Georgia Tech was, I mean, very much a shock, but last-second field goal, probably one of those things of, we're 1 play away, 2 plays away from figuring it out. But this game against Boston College, I mean, all the stats say, I'll admit, we didn't watch the game. Shout out DirecTV. Just saying that.
Moment of silence.
Yeah, moment of silence.
If you want to sponsor the pod, come on.
But, I mean, man, just total domination by Boston College at Florida State, which is unimaginable. I think it's just, again, can't comprehend it. Yeah, I think Mike Norvell is going to get on the hot seat very soon. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, it's just, I had high hopes for him, said they were going to win the ACC, said that DJU was going to be the player to watch, and little did I know that he was going to be the player to avoid. And to, he's the best player for a defensive coordinator to watch. He's your best friend. You know that DJU playing, if it's going to be a big game, you've got it in the bag.
Well, and this will be my last point, and then Chase, I'll kick it to you. I don't think I've watched as poorly quarterbacked a game as what I saw against Boston College from him. I mean, he was 21 of 42, and he'd have one good throw, and then the rest of them, I mean, I told somebody, if you want to get somebody to overthrow a government, DJU is your guy. I mean, he had a guy in the back corner of the end zone wide open, throws him, and then the next one will be at somebody's feet. I mean, it's uncanny. It's uncanny. And all the memes on Twitter, God bless him. I mean, I hope he's on Twitter because he was getting absolutely roasted. They have a bye week, and then they play Memphis. And they're only a 1-point favorite to Memphis. If they lose that game, a place that Mike Norvell used to coach at, woo, buddy. God be with them. That's all I got to say, man.
Hey, Memphis is supposed to be good this year, though. Memphis.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I 100% see them losing that game. 100%.
Let them get a taste of the Trojans this weekend, though. And we'll see how they come out on the other side.
Get the goose loose on them, baby.
Yeah, we'll see who's quicker to 0-3, FSU or the Troy Trojans. So, dude, I just want to end by just saying this, and not to really repeat, but just, man, I talked about how this FSU team feels kind of like TCU, made a run, and it's just they're proving it more and more right. Not even really proving me right, but it's just proving this model of, hey, you can't just go build a team.
Nope.
Transfer portal. That you've got to build solid foundations, solid pillars with high school players, establish culture, and then supplement through the transfer portal. And we're just clearly seeing the byproduct of what happens when you don't do that. And if you would have looked at TCU, you would have said, oh, is that an outlier? Now we're seeing, hey, you know what? Somebody like Dion, hey, you might really, really need to rethink, how you're building a team. And maybe you're the one guy who can do it, but all these teams should be watching saying, nope, high school recruiting still matters a ton. Culture I think what's interesting is in all organizations, culture is something that I think matters more now than it's ever mattered. Like if you were to rewind the corporate world 25 years, they would say, "Hey, on your first day of work, you know how you be successful here? Bring an extra tie and a pillow to sleep on." Like that's just work and fun. And it's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, why do you want to work for this company?" And you butter up and you say, "Oh, I just love, the values and like, I love, what we sell." And I think you're dealing with the generation. It's like, "Oh, why do I want this job? Because I want money to go do stuff that I want to do." And so
Yeah.
It pays more than my
creating a
last
cult-
one.
Did you say that, Greg?
Yeah.
So it really is. It's just like that's the kind of that's the context that we're in now, and you really do need to be a team that people want to play for and are willing to do, like we just saw when LSU and FSU had their quarterback stick around for the 4th year. That's how you have culture. That's how you set the standard. And again, it's not that the product is always proven to be good. It just shows you that you can set direction and cast vision rather than having to start over. And these guys don't know how to work out in the locker room, and it's like you see it, and it's clear that it's falling pretty quickly. So, guys, let's do just some rapid fire. If you guys have 1 to 2 sentences or 1 to 2 minutes that you want to just kind of give your thoughts here, I'll abstain just to give us back some time. So, Graham, I'll start with you. We've got a few fun matchups. Again, we can just rapid fire these, but Texas versus Michigan. New SEC team, but was the Big 12 champion, now playing the Michigan Wolverines, which are in some did not look great to start the season. Graham, how do you think this game goes? They are playing in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I think that this is the second year in a row where Texas goes to I guess a non-conference opponent that is formidable on the road. I thought that Colorado State was supposed to be good this year, but Texas made them look not good. If that same Texas team plays that same way this week, I don't think Michigan stands a chance. Texas favored by 7.5, so a little more than the touchdown. I think it's probably a lower scoring game. I think that Michigan is going to slow the ball down. Their defense is still going to come to play. But I think it's probably I think it's probably one of those, 20 to 13 kind of games. Just not as much scoring as you anticipate with Texas offense. But I still think that Texas is able to handle business, go on the road. I'm sure Ann Arbor is a crazy place to play football, but I don't think 11 a.m. is probably the scariest time to play there. So I'm going to give the benefit of Texas. I think that Ewers is the difference in the game, and I think Texas will win.
Nice. Hampton, I'll throw it to you. Texas versus Michigan. Who you got?
Yeah, I can't wait to watch this one on Saturday. I'm with you, Graham. I hate that it's an 11 o'clock kick. This should be prime time under the lights of the big house. It would be, I think, it's getting pub, but I think it would really increase the profile of the game if it were at night. Texas looked good week 1. Granted, Colorado State, I get it, but they still look good offensively. Quinn is going to play really well for them. He played well week 1. Their receivers, while I think they're not as stacked there as they were last year, I think, Isaiah Bond, Ryan Wingo, a couple other guys that they have in the rotation are going to be able to help out in the passing game. I think defensively, losing their D lineman from last year, I think it's going to kind of maybe pose some issues going up against Michigan, who likes to run the ball. So I'm wondering if Michigan can really exploit that matchup with Donovan Edwards and then the other back that they have who got a lot of run last week. To me, I was surprised Michigan struggled against Fresno, but the biggest surprise was that they started Webb. They didn't start. Isn't it Davis Webb? Is that who they started? Or do I have that right? Do y'all know?
I'm not sure. No,
Not sure.
I failed that quiz.
I'm good. Well, if one of y'all can look that up, I want to make sure I got that right. But they didn't start Alex Orji. They started this kid instead. And their offense didn't look great. I don't think they're particularly innovative on that side of the ball. They don't have the playmakers of a guy like a Roman Wilson like they had last year. But I think their defense with Mason Graham and Will Johnson are going to keep them in the game. But ultimately, I think Texas goes in there and gets a big victory over Michigan, even though I think this one's going to be close. I'm not going to overreact to week one and Michigan kind of coming out sleepwalking, especially when they probably knew they had this matchup against Texas coming up. They might have kept some things close to the vest, but ultimately I think Texas just has too much talent, and I think they have a significant advantage when it comes to coaching in this game.
Love it. Let's go OSU, Arkansas, Hampton. Let's just start. What do you think?
Yeah, man. Arkansas looked really – I know they were playing Arkansas Pine Bluff, but they looked a little frisky in that game. Traylon Green, their quarterback, Jaquindon Jackson, their running back, are a dynamic duo. I think they'd go up and give Oklahoma State all they want, but ultimately I think Oklahoma State is too good. I think they're going to lean on Ollie Gordon. I think he's going to have a big day on the ground. I ultimately had them win the football game. So give me the Cowboys and that mullet man, Mike Gundy.
I like it. Hey, I will say, I'll just tag this. I had never met anybody that went to Oklahoma State, and I work and go to church with a lot of people, and I don't think I ever really realized that if you were to take a look back take a look back at Gundy's tenure there, dude, they've been a top 25 team essentially every year. Like, you would be really happy if that was your team, and you're like, hey, you know what, we're not Alabama, but I mean, dude, they always have a great team. You know, they don't always win the big one, but it always feels like they come ready to play, and they don't lose many games they're not supposed to lose. Like, they do a great job of winning games they're supposed to win, and they then they'll steal a game here or there that they're not supposed to win. And that's why, just my quick prediction, I think they beat Arkansas just because it kind of falls in that category of, hey, they win most of the games they're supposed to, and then they steal one here and there. And I don't know if this is a game they're supposed to win, that they will win, or one they're stealing. But give me Oklahoma State here. Graham, you got anything that you'd add to that? Who's your pick?
Yeah, I would just like to say that Mike Gundy does not currently have a mullet. It is a work in progress. He did get a haircut.
Know.
Yeah, I know.
He's still the mullet man to me.
He will be the mullet man soon. He said he's growing it back out. Just for the listeners, I think this is a first half game where it's going to be close until halftime, and then I think Oklahoma State is going to take off in the second half. Oklahoma State's favored by 7.5. I think it's probably a 14-point game that Oklahoma will win, but when you look back at it, it's probably one of those that, you know, it was closer than the scoreboard felt like, but Oklahoma State will be in control. I think they'll win by 14.
Nice.
I think that's fair.
This might be the one that I'm the most excited for, fellas, and it's this one right here.
Me too.
Is Nebraska and Colorado. And Hampton, let me tee you up this way.
Okay.
And this might not be a fair way to characterize it, but I do think it's an interesting way to look at it. I keep trying to think of what are parallels in the past 2 years, because it feels like that's all the history we have of like current day college football. Stuff has changed so much that it really feels like you can only hardly look at the past 2 years. So to you, do you feel like Nebraska comes in and kind of fills that the Oregon slot from last year, and this is the wake-up call and the shocker to Colorado? Or do you think you can't compare them because it's going to be a totally different game? What do you kind of think about how this game's going to shake out?
So I think that's an interesting comparison for sure. I don't believe that Nebraska this year is on the same caliber, you know, of an Oregon from last year, but I do think this could be that type of game, and I think it could be possibly the first statement win under Matt Rule, letting the country know, hey, Nebraska's here, and with Dylan Raiola as quarterback for the next 3 years, we're going to be a problem. And you know, they played UTEP week one. I thought Raiola looked good in a freshman debut. They leaned on the running game with Emmett Johnson, Dante Dowdle, and Ramir Johnson. They ran the ball pretty effectively, but they didn't overuse those guys, probably because they knew coming into this game, they really, especially with a young quarterback in a big matchup, that they needed to have their legs under them and really lean on them to impose their will against Colorado, because we watched the North Dakota State game. Colorado's defense is not that much improved. Now, they did make adjustments in the second half, and they limited North Dakota State to a degree. But I think Nebraska is going to be able to run the ball on them. I think Dylan Raiola is going to be able to connect with Isaiah Nayor, who transferred from Texas last year, was at Wyoming. Before that, he had a big game on Saturday. I think he's going to maybe hook up with him one or two times over the top. And I think Nebraska is going to get a win. I think they're going to beat Colorado. It's at home in Lincoln. I think Colorado is going to put up, they're going to put up points. I mean, Shador, to me, is him and Cam Ward were the two best quarterbacks I saw last weekend, followed by maybe as far as pure performance and considering the level of competition, Miller Moss and Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, I was really impressed with Shador. He looks to have taken another step. I mean, Travis Hunter's Travis Hunter. He's the best player in the country, in my opinion. Jimmy Horn's really good. Dallas Hayden at running back. Their offensive line has improved. I wouldn't say they're elite, but they're improved. I just don't think they have enough defensively to limit Nebraska enough to go in there and get a win. But I think whoever wins this game is going to be a springboard for them for the rest of the year. I mean, for Nebraska, I think this could really get their momentum going, both not only this season, but on the recruiting trail. I think this is the type of game that galvanizes your fan base, galvanizes recruits. So give me Nebraska in this game. But before I kick it back to you, I made a mistake. It was not Davis Webb, and that's why I second-guessed myself. Davis Webb is a quarterback for an NFL team. It's Davis Warren for Michigan. So I wanted to correct myself before I moved on. But give me Nebraska in this game.
Like it. Graham, what would you kind of add? I think Hampton covered this pretty good in depth. Do you agree with him? Would you pick Colorado? I guess, are you on the hype? That's what this really comes down to.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, do you buy the hype? And I think that's why there's this pull to watch Colorado. And I'm going to be honest, guys, I've been talking to some Cowboys fans up here. And again, word on the street is that Jerry really likes Shador.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
If just think about it, like, everyone would hate it, but everyone would love to watch it.
I would love it.
Dude, if McCarthy got fired, they let McCarthy walk, they let Dak walk, and then they bring in Shador and Prime. I mean, that ESPN wouldn't know what else they wouldn't cover any other sports. They would just cover the Cowboys and Stephen A. just for like literally 55 minutes out of the hour. That's all they talk about. So Graham, I guess just simply give me who's your kind of pick and maybe just a quick reason why.
Yeah, man, this one's tough. I feel like this is an agent's dream game, knowing that you have two great quarterbacks against two iffy defenses, and that's a stretch to say iffy defenses. But it's also a fact of, like, in 10 years from now, when we look back at this game and it's like a repeat of like what happened, like, so 10 years from now, like in the third round of the playoffs or the Super Bowl or week 18 or something like that, or do we have a Dylan Raiola, Shador Sanders matchup like for the ages? And it's like, well, let's look back 10 years to the time they played in Lincoln. I think this is one of those games that, like, I'm not predicting it to be, because we don't know. But what if it could be? So that's why I'm going to watch, because it's going to be one of those things of, I remember when they played in college and it was electric. I think that it's going to be a daggum shootout. I think it's going to be both offenses going, blow for blow.
I hope so. I really do.
I hope so too. The line is Nebraska by 7.5, which I think is too much. But I'm going to take Nebraska at home. But I think it's probably a 3-point game. Like, it's one of those really close games. Nebraska's going to walk it off or win by a touchdown. I think that last week, Colorado's defense just showed that they just haven't really gotten that much better. And I think when you look at trajectory, you look at Colorado has hype, but I think Nebraska has like some actual foundation that's kind of building in the right direction, and that can get those crucial stops. Whereas Colorado, they're going to have the silly play here or there, and going to have to rely on their offense. And I think, like I said, it's a close game. When you have close games, you got to go to the better defense.
So you're telling me they're going to have a Shiloh Sanders unnecessary roughness a couple times?
Exactly.
I love it. All right, guys. Hey, these last two games, and we'll get out of here. I want you, rapid fire. Give me one sentence, maybe as to why you picked them. That can be key takeaway, things to watch for. Just one sentence. So, Graham, we'll start with you. South Carolina versus the University of Kentucky.
UK at home, big.
It's at home. Okay. I heard a lot of people say they were not impressed with South Carolina. We're hoping for something more. We'll see if they get it back on there. Hampton, what would you kind of add to that?
Yeah, I'm taking UK. I thought Brock Vandegrift looked pretty good in his debut. Shout out Justin Barkley, fan of the Wildcats. I think Barry Brown and Dane Key are going to be too much for him, and South Carolina's got to show me huge improvement before I'm picking them in any meaningful game this year. Now, I will say, Dylan Stewart, the edge player, have y'all seen highlights of that cat? Do yourself a favor after this podcast and go look him up. Alien, good. Alien, get off and first step and quickness. Unbelievable. But give me Kentucky.
Love it. All right, guys, last one. NC State versus Tennessee. And I don't know if there's much to say here, but Graham, I'll let you start. What do you think?
NC State played awful week one. Tennessee played good week one. It's not at NC State's home stadium. It's in Charlotte, but not at their home stadium. Give me Tennessee.
Hampton, add to it.
I agree with Graham. Grayson McCall, not a fantastic debut by him at NC State. Our old friend, Grayson McCall. I think Nico Iamaleava played great in week one. Again, it was Chattanooga, but he still threw for 300 yards and a half. I think they got too many weapons. Honestly, I don't think this game is close. I think they beat them by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and the hype for Tennessee, that train starts to get rolling after this victory.
I like it. Hey, ACC.
They're down bad, man.
I don't know who they're going. I don't know who Miami's going to play in the ACC championship at this point, but yeah, it's interesting. Well, guys, hey, it's been a great pod, man. It's always fun to look back and we had so much football. What a great week one! What a great start to the season. Mm-hmm. We'll see some of these teams start to play. You know, they're going to kind of tone down a little bit, but still going to be some great football to cover. And hey, we appreciate you watching this. We might know that you might be watching on YouTube more than likely, but you might have found us through TikTok or Instagram or YouTube Reels. We really do appreciate you if you made it to this point of the podcast. And if for some reason you're still not following us on Instagram or subscribe to the channel, we'd love for you just to do that. We do this because we enjoy it. We'd love for you to be a part of just kind of that family and the culture of doing stuff that you enjoy with friends. So, guys, that's all that I've got. Again, grateful for your time. And I'm looking forward to us recapping week 2 of the college football season, which is upon us. And it's been amazing so far. So the Pigskin Cafe is going to be closed for now. But until next time, gentlemen, you know what's going to be said next. Chew on that. We'll see y'all next time.